What's up, boys? In today's video, we'll be talking about the difference between zonal customs and regular games, where they're still very stacked. So this could be anywhere from a solo FNCS to a cash cup, and it's important to know the difference between how you might play a zonals custom game compared to how you would play a cash cup or a solo FNCS. So enjoy the video.
Okay, so the first major difference between zonal customs and regular scrims is the player positioning. And this is because players have the ability to base wherever they want without being punished, because players can't shoot at them, so they can just go to center zone or on a high ground mountain. And as we can see here, most of the lobby decides to base on this mountain here that is relatively center, so they're likely to get fourth and likely to get half and half. And as a result of this, all these players who aren't on here, unless they get blessed by zone, are probably going to get held by most of the kids on this mountain because they're the only kids rotating. And as a result of the lack of people having to rotate, it makes getting Surge a lot harder in these games from kids rotating, but because the players aren't that good, they often hold edits for too long, and then you can just beam them through their windows. But it is important to learn how to go for tags out while on kids that are rotating, and usually like we see kids over here and here, and you look for tags. So if you got here early, you could look for tags on all these teams over here and go for tags in that way. But instead you have to go for windows a lot more than you usually would. And you also have to worry about like people looking at your windows and your like peanut butter edits. And you have to be more aware that kids are looking at your walls a lot more in these games. The next thing you should probably understand is the fact that congested side of will always be the side. The congested side of fourth will always be the side where most players are based up. This seems pretty obvious, but it's important to realize, especially if you didn't base there or if you based on the edge, you can use the congestion side and knowing where that is and how it differs from normal games. Like normally you'd see a lot more teams on agency and you'd have to think about that. And we'd also see a lot more teams back here. But because this site is so congested, you have to be aware that if you're not based there, where the congestion is and where people are going to be ARing you from. Like if you're like say this kid or these kids, you have to almost put all of your effort to blocking off this very large congestion point on this mountain here. To compare the solo cash cup games to solo zonal customs, the first thing in player positioning, the first thing I think you should notice is like how many players here aren't in zone. Like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You have like at least 16 out of the 65 players in zone, where we might have had like 8 or 9 in the solo zone wars game, in the solo zone rules game. The other thing you should notice is there aren't any massive points of congestion in second zone yet, because like people can't really move without having everyone beam them. So like the mistake that I see some players make is that in like these solo cash out games is like if they don't get center, like they'll try and get to center. Like that kid might try and go to like lazy or something like that. Like if they don't get that center positioning, they might try and go. But if you get zone in these games, you should probably just base there, unless if you have an easy, really easy path to getting closer to center. The next thing I think you should notice is on fourth, zone, when it opens up, normally in a zone rule custom, you'd see a lot of congestion on this mountain immediately. But for right now, we only see this one player until more people rotate in. And the second thing you should notice is how many players aren't like in zone comparatively. Like there might have been like maybe 12 players in the zone rule custom, where here there might be like upwards of like 30 players not in zone. What this results in is, if you look at where all these arrows are pointing, they're all for the most part, like this person's looking out, this person's looking out, they're all looking out. All these people are looking out on rotators, and that's their Storm Surge plan, is to go and get a lot of these people on rotate and get tags from there. Or normally, if you would see a lot of people on this mountain facing this way and looking for tags on people who are like opening edits in Lazy and looking for tags themselves. Another thing is you'll notice the congestion points have less to do about the best spot and has more to do with the closest spot to zone. And what that mainly has to do is over here was the largest side, so it had the most players in it. So as you can see, it's very congested over here. Most of the congestion's in this little sliver here, and then you have a little congestion on the south side. And this is caused by zone, like, this is being a little bit of a south zone, so more players are north. And the zone was largest over here, so most players were in that area already. The second way zone rule scrims are extremely different from normal no zone rule customs and solo cash cups and things like that is your Storm Surge plan. So the first thing you should take into account is the fact that in zone rule scrims, you can only fight for a certain amount of time, so you can't grab tags for as long as you can in a solo cash cup or in like Pracord or in no zone rule scrims. So you have less time to pull tags. The second thing is that more people get zone in fourth when you can start fighting, which makes getting tags on people rotating much harder. And if you see, most players are in zone at this point, like just like 30 seconds after fourth starts to close in. Most players are into zone already. And if you look at where crosshairs are pointed, like almost everyone's looking inward for tags on people who are editing Windows or Peanut Butter and who are looking for tags themselves, and less about finding tags on rotations. If we compare the people in zone and where they're looking, you'll see a lot more players looking outwards, looking for people rotating. All these people are looking outwards, this person's looking outwards, he's looking outwards, and you wouldn't really see this. And in cash cups, you should look into zone for tags if you need them, and for no zone rule customs, instead of looking inwards, because looking inwards is really risky, especially in more stacked games with very good players who can just beam you instantly. So you should definitely be looking outwards a lot more. Okay. So let's say you just faced up in either a zone rules game or a solo cash cup or FNCS or whatever solo tournament you end up playing in, and you realize you're not at 555. In a zone rules game, what you would do is you go and just like farm up some wood, farm some brick, farm some metal, whatever you need to really max out your mats. But in actual tournament games, you don't have the ability to do this. And you kind of have to just base up and then just have less mats. Or if you base up on a place where you can refarm your mats, such as a building or like an area with a large rock, and this can become useful if you intentionally base there, because it saves a lot of mats in the long run, which can then extend your game in the later halves of your game. So I recommend that you don't re-farm in scrims unless if you can get into a position where you could do it in an actual tournament without getting beamed. Because the whole point of scrims is to recreate as close as possible. So I think sometimes being in positions where you don't have max mats in scrims is important. So I think you shouldn't always re-farm in solo customs.
To conclude this video up, the freedom you have when you're choosing where to base in third zone makes it so players can position themselves in the center of third zone, giving them fourth zone automatically. This results in less players having to rotate in. This also changes where the natural congestion of a zone would normally be. As a result, the way players go for Storm Surge also changes. I want to thank you guys so much for watching my new channel. Every view, like, and sub helps grow this channel a lot. So if you could like the video and subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated. And I'm expecting to upload more videos like this in the future. Thank you guys for watching. Goodbye.